You're listening to the Classic Gamers Guild podcast.
I let you ride the worst.
Hey there, welcome to the Classic Gamers Guild podcast.
What's up, fuckers? Sorry.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to the Classic Gamers Guild podcast. We are here to revisit a game that we had talked about a really, really long time ago with a bit of a...
Back when it sounded like this, see?
It did. You can go back, find the old episode. It sounds like that the whole way through. It's beautiful. But this time we're going to do a little bit of version comparison. So there's more than one version of Police Quest 1 by Sierra, and both of them were put out by the company. And they did this with a couple of games. They'd release a game in EGA or something similar, what's it, AGI, and then they'll re-release it with VGA and make it all fancy, and also change some little details, update it, make it all fancy,
all
do all
fucking
that with
fancy
it.
And shit, man. I'll tell you what, we've got some dang old great stuff to talk to you about today. Listen, whenever we're talking about the original version, you'll know because I'll sound like this, see, back in the AGI days, text pasa. And when we're talking about the new one, it'll be palatable. No, but this is the first in a mini series, not in a row, that we're going to do because we really want to cover the Sierra remakes. So it's going to be like we're going to be looking at the original, and to be pedantic, it's confusing because it's the AGI versus SCI, unless it's Quest for Glory, because in that case they were both SCI. So I guess it's always EGA versus EGA.
Those are the initials.
Yeah, those are the. There's going to be we're going to be coming at you thick and fast with the acronyms here.
We've been practicing. Acronyminom.
But yeah, like Anna said, we did Police Quest a long time ago, but this is going to be a little bit of us covering Police Quest and a little bit of us comparing Police Quest. It's going to be just a lot of Police Quest, but only one. Only one. That's it. And again, very different because, okay, for me personally, and I'm going to ask you the same question, what your history of this game is. I know you said a bit on the last episode, but not everyone heard it maybe. But my history personally is I got this game when I was like 9 or 10, somewhere in that, maybe 11, I don't know. And I got the book and I fell in love with the game. And I think now replaying it as a grown-up, I can kind of see why it got me because A, it makes sense. If you mess up, you say you leave your door open in this game and your car gets stolen. What do you not do? In the game. Okay, right.
Yeah, right. You don't leave your car door open anymore. Fair. It's just it is such a very, very good game at teaching you a lesson as you need to learn it and then making you laugh and then being just enough inappropriate. Because, okay, for people that don't know, it's text parser game, the first one. So nice, simple colors. The version I played, the game didn't pause when you're typing, but it paused when they'd answer and things were kind of happening. And it's really simple, a nice palette, and really quite funny. And the VGA one is all artistic and like Gabriel Knight, or even more advanced than King's Quest V a little bit, without the hand-painted backgrounds, right? It's very and it's got that very chill vibe, that very synth, that very 91 kind of vibe going for it too. So they're different for sure.
Well, I'm really glad that you laid the groundwork with that whole "they're different" remark because that's an astute realization that I've come to as well. That these two games are very different, man. Yeah, you're absolutely right that the soundtrack in the remake is actually pretty phenomenal, whereas we just have bleeps and bloops from the AGI original. The remake. Anyway, yes, lots of music in the original. Yeah. No, it's okay. I know better by now. You just got to
because it goes into sirens next, so you don't want me to. Yeah.
Right. Thank God. Yeah. Well, okay. Since you brought up music, we'll just start there real quick and say that it's wait. I didn't want to start there. No, I wanted to start with the art, with the aesthetics of it, because the remake. I'll just get this out of the way. Okay. You gave your origin story. Let me back up. This is possibly the first game I ever played. I've said this many times to listeners that I'm not sure if the first game I played was Space Quest 2, Police Quest 1, or Gold Rush. I think we got them all together, and they all just got played around the same time on a Macintosh, so it was in black and white. But so for me, this is like my first experience. I've always loved this game. I had no choice but to love this game. It was always it was always written that way. I was always going to love it because it was the first. But yeah, I didn't play the remake until I was like just crazy sick, like 6 or 7 weeks ago.
That's what I was going to talk about. Go ahead. Bookmark that. Carry on.
Well, so the reason, and I'll tie this back into graphics. So the reason that I hadn't played the remake until just recently is because the remake is just, it's not fun to look at. It's basically, it's just really
clutter.
If you need help with a visual picture, Police Quest 3, because it's like the Space Quest 1 remake is very Space Quest 4-y. Because I think they're being developed around the same time. So Police Quest Remake and Police Quest 3 have that exact same relationship going on, where it's like the remake looks like the current one they were doing, which is just a less fun version of Gabriel Knight. Like the Gabriel Knight it does have like realism, but it's also just fun to look at. Like it's really good.
Got shadows.
It does. It's got shottens.
Jaegers even.
Sorry. So the graphics are extremely different. They're a lot less fun because, I mean, let's face it, Police Quest 1 AGI, it was done, a lot of it was done by Mark Crow, who's just like the king of the limited palette, man. I mean, okay, I'm not willing to like die on that hill by calling him the king, but he's one of the best to ever do it as far as a limited EGA palette. It's such a beautiful, awesome looking game. You know, so what say you? How do we put a bow or a package on our graphic segment of the show, as this accidentally turned out to be?
Well, it goes back to the very first time I played this, which is when it came out, and I was playing other similar games of its time frame, and I was excited for it, as I often was for a remake. I never judged it point and click parser. I just was like, okay, more of the game I love.
Right.
I'm going to see all the dialogue that I've missed and didn't get a chance to ask everybody about. So I was kind of expecting it to be the same game tied up with a new bow. And when Sunny first came up on the elevator and you start walking around, like, I didn't fall in love with the art style, but it held me in until the driving happened. And then I was like, nah, and I didn't end up finishing it. I stopped right there and then, and I didn't pull it out like earlier this afternoon. And I'm like, okay, well, we're doing a comparison episode. I should probably play this game. And I do find it more visually appealing than I did then because of my reminiscence for this sort of graphics in general. But I found it to be lacking in some aesthetics, like I mentioned, lights, shadows, shading. It was like literally, here's the scene. We've created the scene, and they're not even thinking about like what time of day it is, or night it is, or like, I don't know.
That's a
like
great
some
point.
like some of the ambiance scenes could almost have been pulled right out of King's Quest V in the background artwork. And it just, I don't know, it's a little bit out of place. There's
no personality, right? There's no personality. Like there's more, when you said lighting, I thought of the intro to Police Quest 2, which is at nighttime. There's a solitary lamp light that's projecting like projecting a circular light onto the brick wall. And Sunny goes chasing somebody through it. And it's just like dripping with atmosphere and personality, and it's, you know, that it just looks so much better. Yeah, this realistic style. You're right. It has no lighting really. Like you said, there's no like. Yeah, it's just not fun. It's not fun to look at. I can't articulate it better than that. I can use more words and make them fancier, but it's still going to come down to the fact that it's just not a great time to look at.
But they advertised it as improved visuals and, you know, enhancements, better color depth, higher resolution. What other words can I think of that they used? I mean, they were really about that there was a lot of advancements in technology, and we were able to do older graphics that are just nothing like they were before. And I think they took that idea into the storyline a little. Let's clean it up a bit. Let's put in some of the humor. Let's take out some of the humor. Let's, you know, unsexy some things. And they did all these little tweaks to make it not quite feel like the same game.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a smooth transition into more story stuff. But before we do, I'll just quickly say that this game looks like anybody that's ever downloaded like one of those pixel art apps for your phone that pixelizes photos. Like that's what this game looks like. It looks like pixelized photos. Like And that does a disservice to the artist because it's much better than that in actual like detail. And it is done well in the detail sense, but it's just like, yeah, it's a pixelated real life. And again, in their defense, if any series in the Sierra catalog was to have this like hyper realistic look, it should be Police Quest, but it's still not fun to look at. Whereas the original is absolutely gorgeous, if not quite similar to Leisure Suit Larry 1. You could tell that Mark Crow was working on both at the same time. Because if you look at like the outside of the Blue Room, the restaurant in Police Quest, and the outside of Lefties from Leisure Suit Larry, like they're close. Like they look like they're built next to each other. And then you look at like Helen Hotz next to any of the female portraits from Larry, and it's kind of the same.
I used to get them mixed up all the time. I'd be like, "Oh, is she from Larry?" People would be like, "No, people, ha ha ha." But you know what I mean? Which
person.
Okay, yeah, and the diner too. I have to say, I love the whole watermelon scheme. Now, when I played the original as a kid, there was amber monochrome, as I've said before. So I didn't know it had this like funky, cool 80 watermelon kind of you're at the mall kind of a vibe going to the diner.
Right. There's just something about like the cayennes and magenta, like the loudness of that palette. It makes everything so exciting. Like even the locker room. Oh, okay. So since we are somehow still on graphics, I gotta say, just in case this is cathartic to anybody listening, that there's if you can mentally picture the original Police Quest locker room, and in the middle there's what turns out, as I just realized yesterday, is actually a bench. But man, does this bench ever look like one of those captain's chairs, like from a sci-fi thing? It looks like one of those spinny around chairs, like that a villain would be sitting in, a Bond villain, and then you spin around and holding a cat doing a Dr. Evil. Like it looks so much like a chair from Star Trek, if you choose to see it that way. That I saw it that way for 39 years until yesterday. My perception was shattered, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's actually a bench." Okay, I see that now. So yeah, in case that hits anybody else, where you always thought there was just like this weird out of place chair in the locker room, it's a bench. It's possibly a reused asset from Mark Crow doing Space Quest, but that's here nor there. Okay, anyway. So
it was a good visual, by the way. He shared it with me, and I've always seen it as a bench. But as soon as he said it, my eyes turned it into a chair. And then when I was just playing it after, it's now a chair. So I totally get it.
Okay, maybe that'll be like the thumbnail or something, just in case so we can we corrupt anybody else's memory. Also, for me and you, on a quick little huddle side note that's not getting edited out. Let's jump into the chronological order of the day, because we'll do that thing. Yes. We'll do that Anna Paul thing where this is just all over the place. We're just excited. We got lots of notes and lots of things to say, and we're kind of wanting for direction. But past Anna was looking out for us and sent us a thing that we can follow. So
thanks, Anna.
Yeah, great job. So beginning you used the word duty. Why'd you do that to me?
I'm going to use it a lot. Duty.
That's another word for poopy. All right, I'm sorry. That was a bit on the nose. Anyway, morning at the station. So
actually,
the game
you
starts...
want to plug your nose. Yeah.
Wow. We're not done. We'll
never be done.
Okay, morning at the station. So the game starts in the station hall. The player, Sonny Bonds, retrieves items from the locker, attends a briefing, and prepares for patrol. It's a lot of P's there, but we got through it.
So the first thing I noticed at the very beginning of the game, which is exactly what you're talking about, is in the VGA version, I was used to using the keyboard because the original one, it's all keyboard, there's no mouse. And every time I'd go to walk, you push down, he goes diagonally. You push up, he goes diagonally. Because they're trying to do this like representation of 3D. And I feel unless you use the mouse cursor with the walk icon, that's a bloody difficult game to navigate.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny too, because we've been talking on the side about Phantom Fellow stuff, and I'm like, I'm pushing people, for everybody listening, I'm pushing players in my game to use the arrows and the keyboard, because I think it's more precise, and it's the way I've kind of, I don't know, designed the game. But it only works because in my game you only go left to right. So it's like the left and right arrows is all you need. But like you said with Police Quest, there's a lot of like, if you're stuck with the keyboard, there's a lot of like stair-like navigation, like
It's
like up
weirdly
left, up left,
diagonal.
up left. Yeah, a lot of weirdly diagonal. Now I will say, just on a nerd level, because I did so for the sake of this episode, Anna replayed the old one in preparation because she had good enough recollection of the remake, and I did the opposite. I replayed the new one. Or no, I played the new one for the first time. Regardless, that way we can kind of bounce off each other during this episode and have fresh recollection of one each. That being said, when I had a little extra time to kill this morning, I just quickly played like 20 minutes of a bunch of different versions. The Macintosh, the Apple IIG, I couldn't get my Atari one to work, and the Amiga one. And I'll just say that the Amiga and the Apple IIGS do have a sort of point and click vibe to it. You can click there's an arrow cursor and you can click to walk, which is quite handy in this game. And so it's kind of neat for AGI games in general to have something like that, which I know with Apple and Macintosh, they were early in the mouse games, so they were like really ham-fistedly pushing people towards using it, and that's why. But I just, as a quick note, if you're going to play the original version, play the Apple IIGS version because it's the most beautiful. There's always a bonus sound effect or two, and you can point to walk. Yeah.
That's kind of nice. So did you – I thank you for that. That was a nice
You're goddamn welcome.
learning.
Yeah,
it
was
really
a pleasure.
Appreciate it. So at the beginning, if you're playing the regular version, I found that there was a little bit more of a time crunch than there is in the second one. In the first, before the remake, if you're not doing things right on time and going to the right place at the right time, you'd be getting in shit all over the place. And I feel in the second one, it wasn't as much of a big deal. Or it's not the second one, in the remake, sorry.
Right. Yeah, like I don't remember being late for the briefing, let's say, because I played a bit of the original with my son also last night. I forgot about that, and we'd missed the briefing twice because honestly, frankly, he was dicking around and just
bloody kids.
But yeah, actually, it wasn't even him. It was probably me taking screenshots of that chair in the locker room to send to you. And we missed the briefing, and I don't remember missing the briefing in the remake. I wasn't using a walkthrough. Let's just say I was trying not to. I was giving everything a good go before before turning to that. So yeah, you're right. It was a little loosened up then, on the timing things. It was.
Oh, and a combination for the locker. I'm like, what do you mean combination for the locker? I don't need a combination for this bloody locker. But in the new one, it's like, yeah, you do.
Yeah, and that was annoying because they make you do it every time, too. And you have to get into the locker quite a few times and have to redo the code, which is like a finicky little GUI. But I was going to say, I don't know, what are your thoughts? I think the remake is easier.
Yeah, it's a lot easier. And you know what? They put a lot of time and visuals into the scenes, like the car crash scene at the very beginning and stuff, which we're going to get to in a minute. But yeah, it was like, I didn't feel the stress. I didn't feel the pressure at all in the second one. I also found it slightly less whimsical.
Yeah, it definitely has more of like that kind of, yeah. The remake is wanting for personality, I think, in a lot of angles, because it's like, Police Quest 3 was being developed and James Jensen was in on that project, and they were marketing it as like gritty, and it kind of was Police Quest 3. Police Quest 1 is not a gritty narrative, but like they gave it like that. They gave it the gritty kind of treatment in the remake. Like that's what the Police Quest series is to Sierra. It's a gritty game, and it's like, I'm saying gritty too much, but
it's okay.
But yeah, it's like the writing doesn't back up the rest of it. Like they're really pushing this kind of narrative, like tough, street cop, like real world kind of vibes. But then the story is just not that hard.
They built up the time that it takes to play the second one, not by increasing the by increasing the tedium, because you have to give out more parking tickets. You have to do more patrol work when you're out on the beat. I think you have to give out 6 or 7 more tickets than you do in the first one. So they extended it, I think, in a different way. Right.
Well, the original has the driving, which takes up a lot of time. And it was a realization I had today. I'm like, oh, the driving was perhaps because there was a lot of concern about how long it would take you to play these games back in the day. It's a concern that's eradicated nowadays because if anything, people really enjoy like a short 4 to 6 hour romp with an adventure game. So cheesy to say rump. But but back in the day, you know, they really wanted to extend playtime, so you know, hence like the Space Quest 5 maze or whatever. But the driving really extends the playtime in the first one for sure, because it's just the amount of times you're going to crash inevitably.
Oh my God. Driving's tricky. You know what I did? I forgot to walk around the pimp car later in the game before my partner came out, and my new partner, and I went to go drive off, and I was like, oh shit. Well, normally if you haven't driven off yet, you can just get back out of the car, open the door, and do a walk around. But because I was waiting for my partner to get in, it wouldn't let me do that. And I soft locked my own game. It was like, oh, let's go back to an old save file. Hard locked. Anyways, it didn't work. Driving. Speaking of which, you have to walk around your vehicle either way.
Wait, did you? Sorry, I'm not. I can't just move on from that. So, when you say soft lock, did you crash it? Did you cause like a little bug?
No, I just meant what happens was you have no choice now but to let her in the car. And if you type get out of car, it says you can't get out of the car. You have stuff to do and your new partner's coming. So she walks over, she gets in the car. You're not allowed getting back out. And then you have to drive off because that's your only choice. And then the car blows up because you got a flat tire.
Right. As they do. Yeah. And it's funny, too, that car it reminded me so much of the era of the 80s when cars had that soft, pleathery fake roof. Not a soft roof, but, you know, like a cushioned roof. Yes. Like, what a weird trend that was, man.
Oh, my God.
Like, who thought they were going to age well? Like, they had to have known that shit wasn't going to last in the weather. All right, anyway.
So gross. No, a bug is good. My kid was playing Half-Life by Sierra, random side note, and this professor guy died, and he went between the guy's legs and had to crouch to pick some random thing up, and then he ended up blowing up in this weird glitchy bug, and then the game glitches out and he had to restart it. It's pretty funny.
It's a Viking thing. You guys are oddly good at finding bugs. You found a bug in Beavis and Butthead, like some unearthed 35-year-old bug nobody knew about.
That's great. But yeah, okay, so if you don't walk around your car, you die is the point, but you have to go out on your first patrol, which is because you're just like a traffic cop. You're nobody. You're just Joe Schmo, whatever. And so you know that like later on you're going to be meeting with your buds, but in the first place, you got to encounter to the Lonnie West incident.
Right. And so 2 quick examples of how the remake is easier is that you don't have to physically walk around it. I think you just have to look at it, the car. And then a classic fucking Owlo fuckery in the first, in the original is, I'm going to try and, for the listeners, I'm going to try really hard to say original instead of first one. But for any time either of us say the first one, we mean the original. Yeah. Probably, obviously, but there you go. In the original, you have to look in the pigeonhole twice to get the meet me at the diner thing, which is just
you see nothing.
That's so low, dude. Like him in the look in the same spot a few times thing is just
look in dumpster. There's nothing in the dumpster, Larry. You know look in dumpster. Oh, what do you know? There's something in that dumpster.
That's where the bitterness was coming from. You knew it. But it was just when I came across that again last night, I was like, damn it, Al, with the looking in the same place twice, like. That's a tough one to forgive. It really is. But anyway, in the remake, for the point of it being a little bit easier, is that you don't have to do that. And I will just take a quick time out to say that, well, first of all, in the remake, there's a bonkers driving tutorial, and it just it goes on forever. I think you played with it this morning. Did you run across the tutorial? Did you find it really annoying, or was I just like sick and in a bad mood when I made this note?
No, it's long and you can't skip it. It's the same with if you accidentally that you want to the intro at the beginning. It's like, okay, but just know you're locked into watching this now and you have no choice. And
it just goes on and on. It's like, dude, I get it. Like there's a physical.
There's some arrows. You drive. There's a map. We're good.
Yeah, like it's not like hotkeys. Like you drew a gas and a brake pedal, and so like I obviously clicked them. Like I got it. I got it. It just so kept going though, and so I'll say too, since we're on the driving in the remake sucks. It is no fun. Like I literally.
It's why the whole reason I stopped playing the first time, other than the graphics.
Right. It's like, can you imagine anything that would make you miss Police Quest 1 AGI's driving? And it's like, the remake. The remake will actually make you wish it. Because I was like, man, yeah, it's like it's really hard and you crash a lot. And the saving and loading does get a little, it wears on you.
And
but
pulling somebody over, oh my God, you have to be so exact.
Yeah, dude.
You have to go right behind them in the line, and you have to do it just right, or you're going to crash into them and explode.
And the biggest dick move is the red lights that are at the top of the screen. So as soon as you screen transition, like you screen transition into like a red light, and you have to stop immediately. And if you don't, But you kind of
Always
miss
have the
that
siren
because it's
on.
fucking so boring in the remake. The driving is really boring, and it's like it
sucks.
requires. It's that weird kind of level of thing where we all come across this in many facets of life, where it's like something that requires just enough attention to where you can't mindlessly do it, but it's also
exactly.
no fun.
That's exactly it. Yes. I can't, because I'm just like, fine, drive there. I'm going to walk away and go pee. But it's like,
Right.
no, sit back down and click those gas pedals, baby.
Yeah, just enough babysitting to where you can't. Yeah, thank you. All right. Okay. So, anyways, we'll go back to chronological for as long as we can stand. So we perform our first safety check and we're off, and we respond to the Lonnie West incident.
Yes. And what happens is it's a great big car crash, which, as I mentioned, was pretty grand looking. They put a lot of effort into that crash scene on that VGA remake. Like, dude, it was intricate because you're going from like this simple, there's a brick wall, there's a car crashed in it, there's a dude that's dead, and there's like a little crowd of people here, and that's the end. And in the other one, there's like, you know, you've got the pylons and the cones and the people and the very specific, like there's I think a donut house in the background, and the crowd's even bigger and everything's just more. Yeah,
it is. It was funny too, because in the original, like this game is so revered in my mind that my memory of that scene in the original is even bigger and grander than the remake's interpretation of it, right? It's like,
I like that.
But yeah, the remake was kind of going for that anyway, to just kind of add to it, and yes, this is like your typical getting introduced into the world kind of thing. You go up, you talk to people, you know, you follow the procedures. I guess I'll stop real quick to defend the procedures in this game, because you know, it's one of those things that gets shit on constantly when you hear reviews of this game or any sort of like, just recollections of this game.
I was just thinking about that too. Because you know what? There is nothing I like more than yelling at a perp, say, get out of your car with your hands up. Stop moving. Halt. Lie down. And then you search him and cuff him, and you actually get to say it like that. You don't have to say, tell man to get out of car. Like for the this, because you have to follow protocol. Everything has to be done in the right way or you die. So you're literally able to yell that. You can even put it all in caps and be like, do these things. I'm the cop. Use the real words. Like, it makes you feel like you're interactively a part of the game, especially the way they handled it in the original.
Right. And even like when you get a radio code like 1144, like there's something kind of fun about it feels like you're deciphering code, you know, in a sense, where then you go to the manual and you know, like, yeah, it is a little gatekeepy and arguably even copyright protection-y, but it's kind of fun. And I guess I just want to say in a procedural sense that this is what it is like for police. Like they weren't taking it to like some unrealistic extreme. And I know I can already hear the counter argument is like, well, maybe that doesn't make it fun, which, okay, fair enough. But I just wanted to say, like, what else do you expect? Like, what else would you do as a cop if it's not like a GTA style game? Like, you know, you're not like, there is no like shooting and chasing and shit like that. Like, this is the adventure. Okay, I guess what's sticking out of my head is like, at least in the States, if a policeman hits you with a radar gun and gets you for speeding and you get a ticket, if you want to, you could fight it in court by demanding that the police officer provide calibration records for his radar gun. And if his radar gun wasn't calibrated correctly or at the correct time or wasn't up to date, for example, then you get out of the ticket. And like that's just how it works with police work. Like you everything has to be extremely by the book or the person gets off.
Tickety-boo.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like it is in the spirit of being a policeman. Like this is their life. This is what it's like to be a cop. Is you have to follow the exact procedure, or the person gets off. Like that is the way it is. And again, if the counter argument is like, then well, that's no fun. To that, I say fair enough. But I would just counter that again with what else do you expect? Like what is an adventure game of being a cop supposed to be then? So anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I just was going to interrupt you with an agreement anyways in the first place. It's like, yeah, dude, the very first guy teaches you that lesson immediately or not after the later on, and we'll get to it. And when we talk about him, I'll explain why, because I think it's really neat the way that they put that all together. But in the meantime, after you're done with the whole crime scene and you're dealing with the cops and you get your evidence, you can search the car and do all those little things if you want to. And you can check glove boxes, which is kind of fun. I think this is the first game I ever played where you got to look in a glove box.
Yeah. Well, and God, as I think specifically you and maybe nobody else would know, is that there's you can go into the glove box in my game, and that's because of this. Like the whole reason Phantom Fellows has like, well, not. I mean, they were gonna have a car regardless, but like I think a large thing behind, like thought behind having them be able to go into the car and then open the glove box to get a notebook was totally just police question. Like it, what do you call it? I don't know. I'm not a podcaster. What am I supposed to do? Have words on hand? Inspirational or something.
Right.
That might have been the word. Doesn't matter. All right. Anyway. Look.
So once you're done dealing with the first heist, you just kind of like, and that's the thing that happens, especially in the original, is driving around and waiting for the next. Like it's a little bit more streamlined in the second one, but you just kind of drive around and go screen to screen and wait, and then the time comes, you got to go over and you got to head to the diner. I think next in here, right?
While
and this is where.
Oh, sorry. I want to say real quick that was another note I had for as far as the original taking up time on purpose, and the remake too. I guess it's not just that driving is difficult. I guess my point in my poorly written note here, my point to the listeners would be that they kill time or extend gameplay is a better way to word it. They extend gameplay through driving, whether that's in the first one how difficult it is, how much you crash, or in both of them just the delays that you cannot. There's nothing you can do to trigger anything faster. Like you just have to drive around aimlessly until you get radioed.
It's true. Although if you just sit in one spot and don't do anything, at least as far as I could see, like you can't do that in the second one the same way. But in the first one, I don't think anything seems to happen because I sort of wandered away a few times and it didn't come up, and not until I switched screens and drove around a little bit more did it. And I'm like, how does the bloody clock in this thing go? Because say if you're at the very beginning in the original and you're just standing there doing nothing, time passes, you miss the meeting, everybody's angry. But if you take the same amount of time and you go into the locker room and you take a shower and you do all your locker stuff and then you go into the meeting, it's like, oh, you're just in time, and it's like totally empty. So it just seems random.
That's interesting because I consider my son was crashing just so much that I was like maybe I should just park us in the road and let the radio. And I didn't get a chance to try it because he kept taking over and crashing us. But I will say, like in AGS, a check I'll use for when I'm programming the game is like you can check if a character is moving or if an object is animating. So right. I guess I would say that they must be doing that. Then they're running a check to see if the car is moving. If I don't know if it would be if a character is moving or if whatever. I don't know how AGI programming works, but the same idea.
Equal moving something.
Yeah, they could see if it's moving or animating. So that's kind of neat to know that they did that. They thought that far ahead. Like they knew the player would quickly catch on and try to just park it and wait. Those bastards. Okay, but anyway, so yeah, after that incident, that's basically when we find a dead body. By the way, everybody. So we get to that car crash. The guy's dead. He got shot in the jaw. Hyper specific, but that's the way it is. And we basically call superiors to kind of take over from there because it's a homicide and that's a bit over our pay grade at that point. But yeah, we walk around, we get some information from the bystanders and we do the thing. And then we basically, just farm it out to our superiors and fuck off to Carol's Caffeine Castle.
And this is what I've been waiting to talk about because this is the hook. Paul's been waiting. He's like, yeah. This is the hook for me for the whole game was the humor. And this cafe is where I first encountered the sort of solid humor that I love that Paul thinks I'm nuts for. But if you look at the menu, it'll say, there it is, filet of hummingbird breast, pigsty stew,
listen how proud she
pork
sounds.
Rind. And then he says, yum, with the question mark. And then if you type look room, like as in generally, it says they look choked up from too much hummingbird.
And that's the gut buster. That was the one that was the real rib tickler for Anna. Yeah. Everybody, we go back and forth in Messenger talking about episodes, and it was just a very hummingbird-centric Messenger string.
It's true.
It was, most of her notes are centric around this hummingbird situation.
Of course. That's all. I was going to talk about it for like the whole time. I'm like, can we do another 4-hour long episode, but like entirely focus on the hummingbird food angle? And Paul's like, maybe.
Well, we took it actually quite far in Messenger to the point where at some point Anna had AI generate us. Because I was like, the hummingbird, like if you were to buy cooked hummingbird, it probably looked like how Chinese restaurants do teriyaki beef on a stick. You know, like that shriveled up sad piece of meat on a stick. And then I was like, but it would have wings and X's for eyes. And then she hits me back with an AI generated art of it, which was just
even
beautiful.
Put flowers on the plate for decorations around the. You know how hard it was for me to convince the AI to give it X's for eyes without it kicking me back out. I mean, it took some effort.
Okay, actually, that should be the thumbnail. But yeah, so you go to Caroline Castle. Carol's, we'll just say Carol's. You go to Carol's.
Which, by the way, in the new one looks 100% like Saved by the Bell, 1990s. You're at a mall at the Galaxy Galleria maybe or something. It's very like in the original, I feel it was a little bit like kitschy and old-fashioned maybe even, but it was like new and snazzy and revamped.
It's so much better than the original. It's just, yeah, again, with the personality part of it. Yeah, it has like, it feels like a diner where there's indoor smoking and it's run by somebody named Carol. Like it just has that feel to it. And in the remake, it's just, there's just nothing there. There's no personality there at all. There's some weird ham-fisted pie jokes in the remake. She's like, she's really trying to get you to, I don't know if that's in the original too, but she's like, Sonny doesn't want the pie and she thinks you do. It's just a weird vibe, a real swing and a miss. And I will say, I'll take a pause here to say that the remake has less Al Low-edness. There's less Al Low in the remake. And that's for better and worse. I would say that as just an overarching comment to make on the remake is that they look back. The pro would be that there's a pro and con, by the way, not yeah. So the pro would be they looked at the original and got a nice summary of the story and really expanded on it. And they give you more character development, I think, all around for almost all the characters in the game. There's just a little bit more polish, a little bit more development, a little bit more reason. There's more setup. Like things can be a little jarring in the first one, like the chicken, which we'll get to. And there's a little bit more like setup in the remake. Like the remake knew what was going to happen and they prepared us for it. But that being said, it also lost some Al Low-edness. It lost some of like the zany, just lightheartedness, I guess you could say, of the original. Like, and that therein kind of lies the charm. Like the charming aspect of the first one is a lot of that was Al Low. But the con, again, with the original is that there's moments in the original, and I say this just as like as an adult, like that's a weird brag, you know, as an adult person.
One of those.
As an adult, as a mature person, I can say,
golly gosh, mister, you're like a real grown up.
And because what I'm trying to say is not from the nostalgic view that I really do have for the original, but just trying to be skeptic from the side. I can say that it's quite obvious that the first one was done by two very different people. You've got Jim Walls and Aldo, and they could not be more different. And that does slap you across the face like a cold snowball to the ear on a winter morning sometimes, where you're just like, wow, that was really sexual, or that was really silly. Like just out of nowhere, it rips you from Jim Wall's more grounded, gritty police work, and it just hits you with like the hypersexual moment. And you're like, that was Al Lowe's.
That's why codename Iceman, although it looked like it could have been Larry 4, wasn't funny because it was just like it didn't have the Al in it.
It didn't have the Al in it. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and a quick side note, just in case we don't get back to Al Lowe. We had him on the show a long time ago. And that was a great interview. I'm not just saying it sort of way as to not waste your time if you did want to go check it out. That's one of those ones that's quite good. Like we tried to ask questions that he wasn't used to getting, so hopefully there was like some actual not new information, but different things. And one of the angles in that spirit, let's say, was to talk to him a lot about Police Quest, because all three of us, Rick was with us at the time. That's why I say three of us. So all three of us were we all love Police Quest, so we asked him quite a lot of Police Quest questions, if nothing else than to give him like a break from all the Larry stuff he always has to do. But we learned a lot of cool things, and one of the funnier anecdotes that he told us, I really wanted that word just then, was that when he was brought onto the project, because basically Jim was being just a little too Jim, maybe a little too Iceman, to your point, Anna. It was just like a little too, wasn't quite, it was everything but fun, I think, was kind of how like Ken and Sierra
too
was
much
looking
submarine,
at it.
not enough seamen.
Right, exactly. Wow, that was great. That was great. I could taste that statement. It was
metallic.
briny, yeah.
Yeah.
It's messed up. Okay. God, yeah, of course I don't know what I was saying after all that. I mean, how could you?
I totally interrupted you hard.
How would anybody, though? I mean, honestly, I don't care
know.
how many episodes we've done. Nobody can prepare. Okay, so anyway, he said that, okay, I know what I was saying. Jim Walls, every time you fucked up in the game before Al Lowe came on, Jim Walls had it programmed to where every single time you messed up, it was Jim Walls would pop up on the screen and say, "You're blowing it." and Al had to, basically that was how Al introduced us to the notion that Jim hadn't ever developed a game before, and he was like, "Okay, Jim, you can't just do that every time. Maybe once, but so we can't beat the player to death with you're blowing it." And maybe we need to even tell the player, like, give them a hint as to how they blew it, so they don't do it again, and just development stuff that Al took Jim under his wing for before setting him loose bravely into codename Iceman, which was not great. But I will say Jim does pull the rudders up and kind of, Jim gets altitude again with Blue Force. Yeah, that game was actually fun, even though you oddly play off duty like the whole game, so you don't have any perks of being a cop, and you're a cop.
We haven't even done an episode
choice.
about that together, have we? The grandma's hardcore, man. She is so
She
hardcore.
is. She's so super hardcore. Actually, we'll have to do that. We'll have to do that someday. All right. Anyway,
that'd be good.
So I know. I think I'm done though, right? Yeah. I just wanted to mention that in case we got away from Allo. Oh, to anybody listening who goes on to play the Phantom Fellows, which is getting mentioned more than I intended this episode, I'll just say that there is a death scene, and the Sierra death message starts with "You're blowing it." And now you'll know why. So you get a little extra when you see it.
Exactly. So the reason you're at Carol's Caffeine Castle isn't just to hang out with your friends at this point. You're actually going there because there are problems next door, and it involves everybody.
Yes. It does. Well, you know what? Before we move on to that, let me say real quick, because this is when we meet Steve, who's crying about his daughter, right?
I think, is that when we meet Steve, or do we meet him at the end of the shift too? Maybe we see him twice there. Yeah. I mean, the story's not good. The point is, whenever it is you meet him, his daughter's in a hard up way, isn't she? Yeah,
exactly. And so I wanted to bring this up because our good actual friend and network member Trolls, Space Quest historian, did an awesome retrospective on Police Quest, which will be linked below this episode in our thing, so you guys can check it out when you're done listening if you haven't already. And please do, like, it is super fun.
So funny.
and obviously, his angle, Trolls' angle, is to humorously shit on these games, as he did with King's Quest, to great effect and to my entertainment. But I will just say too, because I saw in another review, it might have been Rose's review, but they were giving it a hard time, including Trolls, for this not being necessary. Like, it doesn't do anything for the story. And I just want to disagree and say that I think this does something for the story. Whether it was executed well is obviously up for your own opinion and debate. It's not executed well in the first one. In the remake, it's done a little bit better. But I think it's actually the fact that Jim Walls knew to do this shows the potential. Like, yeah, he wasn't like a seasoned storyteller yet, but this is actually good storytelling, because what he's doing is trying to make it personal for you, the player, and for Sonny. To say that, like, hey, it's not just the fact that drug dealers are infiltrating our little town and fucking it up, but it's like, here's how it hits home. Now one of your officer's daughters, who's buying these drugs from this guy, is in a coma because of an overdose. So it's like, it really isn't. Yeah, it's super ham-fisted. It's not handled great in the original. So I get why Trolls and why it's perceived that way. But I would just say, looking below the surface, if you really want to find a meaning, there is one there, and it's a decent one. It's a good storytelling tactic, right? To get personal investment on the player or protagonist side. So, Yeah.
I think they did. I mean, it was funny because, the progression is kind of funny. You're like, oh, his marriage is falling apart. He's having problems with his daughter. And then later on, we'll talk about how his friends all try to cheer him up. The whole progression just goes downhill from there.
Yeah.
I just, oh my goodness.
And then
I took screenshots of the whole thing.
What makes it even funnier, and what makes me a monster, is that she dies. His daughter dies, and you're just like, my God, they killed her. They really killed her. They really saw that. Like this poor guy.
I thought that I missed something in the game. Like, did I not arrest somebody? Like when I was a kid, I thought I didn't arrest somebody in time, or I missed something. Because, at the very end of the game, it gives you a rundown for the court, right? Guilty, not guilty. And it all depends on the evidence you collected and if you collected it properly. But in this, it's just like, you can't even stop it, man. I'm just like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And that's the two very different people behind the writing of this game. Is that there's your Jim Walls, where like the daughter dies, God damn it, that's how it would have been.
Oh,
and then
that's what I was going to say. I think some of the stories, especially when you go into the locker room and talk to the other police officers and they tell you about some of the arrests that they've made that are not a part of the game, I think they came from it. Maybe of exactly what happened. I think it was all influenced by actual events that he saw out on the force. I think even his friend dying, the daughter, the overdose, I think this is stuff that he's encountered with all of his time. Like, I could feel like there's this one sort of story when he's in the locker room. Here we go. And he's like, hey, can you believe Morris? Oh, no, that's Morris. But anyways, this dude was so wired. He was nude breakdancing on loose gravel. His back looked like raw meat. Yeah. And I'm like, that is something you've experienced in some way. I don't think Jim was entirely making that up. I'm like, no, dude, this happened to one of your officer friends for sure.
Yeah, that sentence sounds like how the remake looks. There's that just, whew, man, that's a tough watch. It's real quick on Steve before we move on to from him, and then we'll move on to what's going on next door at Carol's. But before we move on to next door, I just want to say Steve has a ridiculous comment. And so does Sunny in more or less this area of the game where Steve's like, my girlfriend gave up karate to work on her tan. And I'm just like, what the fuck was that sentence? What? It's also like a very California in the 80s sentence. Like in a very, in just one little sentence, just having karate and work on her tan. It's like they did capture an era there. And then Sonny, I think he more or less responds with, what do I need with women when I have a computer? And I think that myself right now and potentially a lot of our listeners can just be like, fuck yeah. I hear that.
Yep. This is it. This is the new way to go. Sonny was ahead of his time. And I mean, think about the computer he was working with.
Exactly. He was ahead of his time. Perfectly put. Okay, so bring us next door, Anna. What's going on there?
Well, next door, there's some roughhousers. And I mean, until you talk to Carol about what the problem is, you can go in the next door and you can bother with them. And they're just like, what, go away. But if you find out there's a problem, you go over there, you're kind of like, y'all have to move your bikes. It turns out the emergency is simply that the bikes are parked in front of Carol's place. And there's lots of parking all around there. And they weren't even causing Carol any trouble. And honestly, I think she could have just like coped with them being there. But whatever.
Well, frankly, Wino Willie's trying to run a business. I mean, where are his patrons supposed to park? It doesn't seem fair. I didn't understand that. Like, okay, I will say that since we were covering this whole point of this is to do the remake thing, I almost apologized for it, but then there's like, wait, that's why we're here. In the remake, I guess maybe they even realized this because they drew a new fresh screen that you get to see in the remake where it's like this, you get to see that Wino Willie's has its own parking lot. Is what I'm trying to say in the remake. There's like a dirt parking lot and it kind of wraps around the building and whatever. But the point is like in the original, it really does seem like they're parked in the only place that they could park if they were to go to that facility, like that, that place. So it seemed really unfair of Carol. But in the remake, they definitely covered their tracks there. They're like, okay, they must have spotted that one. In other words.
Yeah, it must have been. You know, when the bikes were all parked in front on the original, the first time I played it, I thought that was like one of those white lines that they draw on the ground to be like, this is where you can or can't park. And every time I'd hit that white line, I'd die. Turns out it's because you're driving into the bikes. It took me forever to figure that out.
Can you, because I have a note here, can you, I'll go with the note first. And I said that I was getting crazy anxiety because in the remake, every time that Sonny walks to get back in his car, he goes like way into the street. And it was really stressing me out because anybody who's played Sierra AGI games knows you don't just walk characters into the street. And and then it was really stressing me out in the remake because Sonny kept just like really heading out into the street and then hooking a U-turn back to the car door. And I was just like, please don't get hit by a car. You don't know this, but you're in a Sierra game right now. They're going to fucking kill you.
Those angles, I think that's why it happened that way. They really got some weird views on some of these rooms. Even, okay, I'm in the diner and I get the feeling like the floor is like a little wavy. Like it's not directly straight all the way across. Like, I don't know. There's just, they were playing with experimental angles a lot.
Yeah, they were. They absolutely were. And they did that a lot in the Police Quest series because Police Quest 3 has one of the coolest directorial decisions I've seen in a Sierra game, which is they film, let's say, or they place the camera on a parking lot's lamplight. Mm-hmm. So you're looking down from the lamplight in the parking lot at the scene. This is Police Quest 3. It's unrelated to the episode, but it was just really cool. It was quite creative. So, but it just kind of go to show they were using this series to try and pull some like crime drama camera angles from, perhaps. Like
Larry, I think it was Larry 5. Was it that the one? Yeah, the shower scene, and you're looking up through the underneath for the glass shower floor.
Right, that's 3. That's in 3.
Underview. Oh, is it 3? Yeah, and you get the underview of his junk like that. I thought that was just an amazing angle.
It really was. Yeah, that's not an angle I wish on anybody. Like, Jesus.
It's
hardcore.
That game was so funny.
Yeah, that's an awesome game, 3. We'll have to do an episode on that one day.
Okay. Yeah, we should.
So we deal with the situation at Winos, and that's when we're introduced to Sweet Cheeks Marie.
Oh, yeah, right. Because first you have to take out your baton and beat the bikers. First you're like, get the hell out. And they're like, no, we won't. We're going to beat the shit out of you, pig. And you're like, oh, no, you won't. And then you beat them. And they're like, no, you don't really beat them. But they're like, oh, my God, he's pulled out the weapon. I think he's actually going to hurt us. And then they all leave. And Sweet Cheeks Marie, who you're already a little bit kind of soft with, is sitting there on the bench. You know, you'd think his love interest would have been his female partner. He gets later in the narcotics division. But no, here we go. Enter love interest. Now.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Enter now surrounded by a bunch of just sweaty biker guys. She got done filming a bukkake thing and we're like, I love you. It's a really weird dynamic that goes on with Marie because it's very obvious that she's a prostitute in the game and that's what she does and everything like that. But there's no self-awareness. There's no like, they don't take even a minute to like, have any sort of like self-awareness towards Sonny of that fact. It's like that's completely ignored when it comes to their budding romance. But otherwise, it's like it's her whole character arc is just being a whore. That's not fair. Being a hooker, she's paid for it. God damn it. Well, no, I guess whore does work. Paul.
No, I think
she's not a slut. Whore. She's a whore.
You have to say it like whore.
Hoa. That's a whole different thing. But
why
what I was trying to differentiate in for our astute listeners is that she's not a slut; she's a whore because she gets paid for it. That's all I was trying to do there. But I regret it. Everybody is worse off for it, but we're done with it now. So yeah, we meet Marie, and she's a prostitute, and we warn her to stay off the streets. She's not gonna listen to the warning. We're gonna tell her that there's.
Go ahead.
We're going to tell her that they're about to sweep the streets and you know arrest all the prostitutes, and then we find her back in jail a few days later, and it's just like honey, please can you keep them closed? Like I'm trying to fall in love with you here, and you keep banging other dudes.
Well, you go to give her a kiss in the original. You're like you go to kiss her when you first see her, and she's like, "Oh, that's so sweet. I'd love to, but I have an appointment in like 5 minutes."
Right.
You're like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. Should I wait? Like, fine.
Yeah, she's very hot for Sonny too. We should mention, especially in the.
Oh my God.
not especially in the remake, but it's
Mhm.
she just has
It's
more.
there.
I think she has more lines in the remake, so there's just more opportunity to hear how much she's definitely more on the nose about it in the remake, about how much she really likes you. In the first one, you get like a little whiff of it here and there. You're like, oh, I think she's into me. But in the second one, it's like she's always liked you, and yeah. So that's nice, I guess.
I guess you don't really know for sure in the first one until you're like pretty much kissing her through the bars of the jail cell, and you're like, this is really gonna be a thing, huh?
Trolls brilliantly gave the guy in the cell next to you guys like a what the fuck slot bubble for that scene because he's just like, what the fuck? This cop is fully hooking up with the hooker in the cell next to me right now. This is weird.
I love that. The jail scene's so funny. He's just like, when you walk in, the booking guy is just like, hey, what's up, hot pencil? And he's got all these great little names. And then there's this like big, scary bouncer looking dude in the other jail cell that like verbally assaults you every time you go near him.
Oh, and when Sonny meets Sweet Cheeks, I got a note for this part where a really funny line that Sonny says, and this was I think this line's only in the remake. Let me know if you saw it in the original recently, but I think it was only in the remake. Sonny says that. Oh, okay. I'll just read it as I wrote the note. You cringe at the colossally stupid words that just came out of your mouth. And the words that came out of his mouth was, he says this to Marie, I'm a policeman.
Oh no, I don't. That's not in the first one.
Like Ralph Wiggum. It was so funny because it did sound.
I'm a policeman. I protect people.
But it's like you kind of believe it at first because it reads like how the original Police Quest reads. The whole game is not slick with its wording. You know, like it's just like I know one of the lines from the original from that jail cell scene is God, what was it? Dang, it just escaped me as I went to say it out loud. That's not fair. It's not fair. I finally had time. Fuck, it's gone. Okay, well, either way, the point is that the first game isn't the most, I don't know, well articulated game. It's not the most poetic, I guess you could say. It's in the way it's worded. So when Sonny says to Sweet Cheeks, "I'm a policeman," you're just like, yeah, okay, that's kind of on brand for the Police Quest series. But then he acknowledges that it was really stupid and that it was him just like looking at a pretty girl and being like, "I'm a policeman." So anyway, it was adorable.
That's cute though. That's funny. Oh, and the other change too, right after you leave there, you have to start doing some BUI work. And in the first one, it was, the dude's name was Art Sarabian. And I think it was based on Al Lowe, and it was like on the driver's license. Definitely. It said one of his restrictions was programmer. But they changed his name. He was Bill Barnum in the second one, and he had 2 prior convictions. So you just got to,
Oh, nice. I don't know. Okay, they changed it to Bill. It's funny. It looks more Bill Barnum than Art Sarabian. But basically, you arrest Al Lowe and bring him to jail. And that's the first time.
And he'll kill you. He will. He's like, I'm feeling really sick. If you could cuff my hands in front of me, and if you listen and you cuff his hands in front of you when you go to put him in the police car, he kills you when you die on the street right there somehow.
Yeah, just like your average like 45-year-old dad who drank a little too much. He'll just straight murder you in cold blood. Handcuffing him wrong. Oh my God. All right. So that brings us to the end of our first shift. Well, yeah, we bring Art to jail. That brings us to the end of the first shift. It lets us interact with the jailhouse and see how things work there. And man,
the dude with go ahead.
I was just gonna say, as a kid, it feels so cool. It feels so like part of the job. Like, now you get to bring him to jail and blah blah blah. I don't know. Okay, you go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry. It's just, it's funny because like the big scary dude in the jail. Oh, and there's always that black dude playing basketball outside, which is funny. But he's like, he calls the police sidewalk lizards, and I always wondered, like, I'm guessing that's probably a name that was used out on the beat. I don't think that was made up for the game.
Yeah, well, it's funny because first of all, I got to acknowledge the basketball playing guy and just say to Trolls, in case he's listening, there was 4 cells. But there's some hand-fisted, especially in the remake, they do it even more. And I think they're trying to like, I don't know. Ultimately, it's just not great writing because I think they're trying to make you feel like you're in a cop's world, and they make the mistake of doing that in the remake by just having them say what you think is cop sounding stuff, But I don't think Jim Walls is on the project anymore. And it's just like a bunch of Sierra staff like thinking that cops sound like this. Like, okay, an example is like, it's the other, not Sweet Cheeks. What's the other girl's name?
Laura?
Yeah,
not
Laura.
the prostitute. Laura, yeah.
It's Laura, yeah, thank you. Laura like walks into the jail. This is the remake where Sonny is, and she's like, Sonny, I'm glad I spotted your black and white out there. And yeah, she means black and white, like a cop car. And it's just like, whew, man, that is so like shoehorned in. It's so just ram it in there. Like, this is a police game. We call cars black and white. Like, okay, all right, Jesus Christ, I get it. I'm a cop. But yeah, both games basically, I'm just trying to say, are a little rigid with their delivery on how on cop slang, let's say, with Sidewalk.
So you got to rush back to the office, and if you're playing the original version again, that timeline thing cuts, and if you take too long, the chief gets really angry, and it doesn't matter. I mean, when you go back, the chief's angry, but not at you. He's angry at a gremlin, the gremlin. The
gremlin, yes. So, okay, this is the chicken scene. I guess there's a few things to say about it. One is that it's not the as this is again credit to Trolls from his video, but it's not the Astro Chicken song that's playing here. Well, first of all, if anything, the Astro Chicken song in that scenario would be the Police Quest chicken scene song, right? Because Police Quest came out 2 years before it. But there's no need to call rank because ultimately that's the Astro Chicken song is a real folk song from like 1910 called the Chicken Reel. So if you guys want to hear the actual real Astro Chicken song, it's called the Chicken Reel, REEL, and you can check it out. This is a really old song. It actually has lyrics too. Or better yet, just watch the Space Quest Historian's video on Police Quest because he'll play all of that song you'll ever want to hear in a good 20 seconds.
But the point is, there's this chicken who's not, at least, and I don't recall, did they say that in the second one? Because they're like, not only is it putting feathers out all over the chief's desk done by some prankster called the Gremlin, but it's also shitting everywhere, it turns out. And it's lost its bowels on the desk. And if you go to touch it, it's just like, oh, you don't want to touch this. It's just going to shit all over the desk.
Yeah, and it's I don't remember if they say it in the remake. I think they do say lost a bowel, something like that. But yeah, my other note for this is that no matter how ridiculous it is, and this is like one of like the 3 points I really actually wanted to make to everybody in defense of Police Quest would be that this actually really did happen to Jim Walls. And I know that because of Sean Mills' book, The Sierra Adventure, but it's basically like this was a real thing that happened. There was a real prankster and they really brought a chicken in. So it just it seems like tonally like a crazy tonal shift in the game when this moment happens, and maybe it's because it could have been set up better. I don't know, but regardless, it's like it is true. These are just real things that happen. So it's like sometimes life is just fucking weird, like this scene. But the Gremlin is uncovered in the second game. We do, and I love the way that you can find out who the Gremlin is in the second game because it's not given to you. You have to like dig through the computers and find out that one of your coworkers at the Force was written up in between the first and second game, and they were written up for the crimes of being the Gremlin, basically.
That's amazing.
Pranks. Yeah,
that's great.
It's a female, and I don't remember her name, but yeah, she's on the Force. She's on the inside, man.
Yeah, because he was so mad. And it's great. I mean, it brought it to life, a little bit of camaraderie. It was kind of a fun thing to put in the game. And yeah, if you go to pick it up, it just says, you don't want to pick up a chicken that just relieved herself all over Sergeant Dooley's desk. So see, look right there. The Gremlin is the chicken's a girl. Okay. Well, that's good to know. I guess a chicken would be a girl. Give me a moment. I'm fine.
Is that how birds work? I don't know. I don't know my bird genitals.
There's that joke, right? You know, if a rooster is on the very top of a house and it lays an egg, does it fall off of the west side or the east side?
No.
It doesn't lay eggs. It's a rooster. So.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay, it's one of my favorite jokes. It gets everybody.
No, yeah, as it just did me. Yeah, I am. I'll be honest, I thought there was more coming. That's why I waited like that. I'm like, is this like a who's there or whatever?
You can use it on your son later. He'll love it. Sometimes I've gotten kids like I'll get them to really think about it. Like my other one is a plane crashes on the border of Canada and the United States. Where do they bury the survivors? Ask a kid that one. That one's hilarious. They're like, oh, well, because you don't bury the survivors, obviously. So.
Oh, right.
Yeah, those are good. I love those.
God.
Don't even ask a kid. Ask your friend. Ask your podcast co-host. I mean, ask anybody.
Just spread it around.
It's good. I've been saving those up since grade school for a reason. This was it. Thanks, guys.
Man, all right. Well, listen. I'm gonna file that under Hummingbird and just keep us moving.
So it's the end of your shift. You're up for a potential promotion, I think, at this point, and you have to deal with it. That's kind of, isn't it? Or does that not happen till tomorrow? No, that doesn't happen till tomorrow. You're just done your shift. You're going to go party at the Blue Room with your buds or something.
Possibly.
No, you're not even. You're going to go party somewhere. Yeah, Blue Room. You're going to party at the Blue Room.
Are you? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The Blue Room is basically lefties. Right. Okay. Yeah. So we go to hang out there, and that's poor Steve is there. His daughter's she's doing worse now. She's in a coma. His life is falling apart.
He says, my life is going to crap. I can't talk to my daughter. She won't listen to me anymore. My drinking has my marriage on the rocks, and my wife's ready to leave me, and everything's a mess. He is like truly upset. And then your buddy Keith shows up, and you know what?
I guess ball.
It's like, yeah, he brought the party, and dude's like, I'm going to lose my marriage. I'm going to lose everything. So they're like, I think Hoochie Hannah is going to be able to fix this, wearing a grass skirt and balloons.
Right. And you feel bad for the other Patreons there who didn't ask for that. They're just trying to enjoy like a nice evening and a meal, and some girl just busts in the door in a grass skirt with her titties out. And it's quite, in the remake, it's Keith is handled slightly differently. Well, first of all, in the original,
he has a last name. Mm-hmm.
Right. Thank you. In the original, it's Keith Robinson, the infamous Keith from Police Quest 2, who still to this day is my favorite adventure game character of all time. Mm-hmm. Keith, basically Keith the nihilist. He believes in nothing. So it is the same Keith in the original. It's both Keith Robinson, but in the remake, there's a meddling Josh Mandel hanging around because somehow Keith's name changed from Keith Robinson to Keith Mandel.
Keith Mandel.
Making it not the same Keith from the sequel. So just on a super nerdy note, but also in the remake, he's actually in the original, I feel like Keith was like kind of there the whole time. Maybe I'm wrong, but in the remake, because it doesn't even matter for my point. In the remake, he's not there. You're in the middle of Jack's birthday party. There's like a girl dancer. Jack's like crying. Actually, is his name Jack in the remake and not Steve?
Yeah, I think it's the same guy. Oh yeah, Jack's birthday. It is definitely Jack's birthday in the remake, and Keith is there the whole time.
Okay.
He comes in a bit later than you, but he shows up. Then the dancer comes. Yeah.
And Keith just breaks in like a wrecking ball, and he's just like the dudes, whether it's Steve or Jack at this point, even I don't know. He's super sad about his daughter, and there's like a party going on, and Keith just busts in the door, and he's like, "Yo, Sonny, you promised you'd take my shift. It's over for you." And he takes our place at the party, and we have to go work. So it's just. Yeah. It's really fitting it's like the first time Keith would fuck us. And like, you just have to tune in for Police Quest 2 to see how that trend continues.
Because you're about to go home, and he's like 15 minutes. And also during that whole performance, you're kind of like thinking maybe Jack's not into this because he's upset and stuff's going on. So if you wait afterwards, he'll be like, oh, Jack, I think I'll ask Santa to put her under my tree this year.
Right. Yeah. He comes in with that Matthew McConaughey Keith energy. Just all right, scumbag kind of vibes. And it's the first time out of many times in Police Quest that you'll basically be covering for Keith, because that's all you do in the second game is cover for Keith.
So after you're done with Keith and he does all of his thing and you're done, and Jack's, I guess, happier than he was before, you find out you've got your 15 minutes. You got to quickly rush back to the station and go take a shower. And then Morris Fuddley is still having a shower. And it's funny, if you go up and you talk to him in the shower, at first he's like, "Ah, man, what are you doing? Get out of here." But if you keep persisting, he'll say stuff to you.
Right. And there's the guy who's pooping all game is in there too, right? Since we've already picked. We've already been quite low hanging with the fruits in this episode with the potty humor, so why not just mention that guy too while we're at it? Quick notes I have regarding the remake is that when you're driving around, I wish they chilled out with the mission reminders in the car. Like they would tell you like so and so is happening, respond here, and you're like, word, now I know what to do. We got to head over to Fig Street or whatever, wherever the fuck Fig Street is. But the timer they set on that was not long enough at least in the remake, where they just keep hitting you with it, and it's like, dude, please, like, I know you're stressing me out. I don't know where Fig Street is, and like you're trying to like navigate and not crash and make the right turns and blah blah blah, and the game's just kind of a little bit stressful in a bad way, like not in a at all useful or fun or builds tension like that sort of way, just in a unnecessarily stressful way. I didn't appreciate that. Okay, that's all I got there. Sorry.
That's okay. So yeah, you're bugging the guy, and he's in the shower for forever, and he's been complaining that the force should allow everyone to take longer, more comfortable showers. So he's all about the shower, is what I'm saying. One guy's always pooping, another guy's always showering. That's the game.
And frankly, they make you shower too much in this game. Like, dude, it takes place over like 2 days. Yeah, there's just so much showering. Like, we're as clean as we can. But at this point, we're removing healthy bacteria. You know, like
But yeah, you go back, you have another meeting, and the chief acknowledges what you dealt with, and then he's kind of like, now you have a new assignment. You have to get out there, and you've got to bust a dude. So you're like out here with a mission this time specifically.
Exactly. And the note I have here has nothing to do with where we're at in the game, but I think it's funny because it's a little unhinged rant for myself, where it just says, look is available everywhere. Once again, you don't need hotspot markers when it's all there for you to see. Want to know which thing to interact with? Well, you'll have to explore and make that decision yourself. Is my note to, I guess, me and everyone listening, which is just to say that I really love how in the remake, everything, you can look at everything. I mean, it's exactly, it's a dream. It's perfect. It's like outside of the police station is one of the most mundane screens I can think of in the remake. And even there, you can look at the street the street, just the ground. You can look at that and get a unique response. You can look at the foliage and get a unique response. Same with interact. Everything is a hotspot. This is the direction I went with my game and why I'm being all, on a pedestal about it. But it's just like, you don't need hotspot markers when everything's a hotspot. And it's an adventure game. Like, if you want to know what to interact with, maybe you should explore your surroundings and figure out what to interact with, as opposed to like, here's the 3 things in this screen. That's the one you want. Like, gee, thanks. This is what a ball I'm having. Like, yeah, I'll be done in 4 neat hours, but was it fun? Okay. Sorry. I'm sorry.
That's
Point
okay.
is,
It's
on
funny,
a positive note, there's a lot of interacts and a lot of looks, and it's just, it almost bears reminding in this day and age. Like, if you find yourself playing this Police Quest remake, because or not of this episode that we're doing, just take a minute before you walk off screen and stay like goal oriented. Just take a chill moment to just like look around, just enjoy the scenery.
Look at the plants,
some funny
look at the
lines.
coat rack, the pad on the desk. Look at the pictures on the wall, because there's something slightly different for everything. Look at the chairs. Look at the floor. Look at the wall. Look at the ceiling. Look at the vase in the chief's office. I mean, seriously, look at everything, and it is fun, and that's the kind of stuff I live for in games like that.
Exactly. Thank you for the energy you brought to that too. Like inside the jail. So a quick example I had written down was you just look at the wall of the jail, and it's a good line. It says, "Oh, this wall is painted in institutional green." It made me laugh pretty hard because it is very like just sanitarium kind of colored green, and it's funny. And one other one was like, "I'm standing out here radiating cop vibes," which I thought was kind of hilarious, especially for the self-awareness that it brought. That was another funny line, just from looking around. So yeah, okay, back to the story.
Yeah, you're
Meanwhile, back at the story.
Better with the Pringles container.
Much better.
But yeah, you gotta pull over this dude. You gotta wait for backup, and then you find out another little difference between the 2 versions. You don't have to load your gun. You just kind of can pull it out and use it and it's all ready to go. And in the first one, you have to very specifically take your ammo out of the locker, load it into your gun, draw your gun, shoot your gun.
Right. There is something more. There's usually more steps with parser stuff, isn't there? I don't know. I guess it was more the error than the parser factor, but yeah, that fits. Mm-hmm. It fits in a way I can't even explain. Just makes sense that it is that way. Okay, I want to make a quick note because we'll probably end up pacing wise. We'll probably end up getting past the latter third of this game rather quickly when it comes to us speaking during this episode, because the last third of the game is a lot of poker and shit like that. So before we get to that point where we start trying to more or less wrap up, I want to mention that one of the key differences for me between the remake and the original, and I want to get your thoughts on this too, Anna, is I appreciated the remake so much more than I expected to, because in my mind, and it's true, I like parsers more. If I had to pick, like I especially the SCI 0 era of like we're talking like Lara Bow and Space Quest 3 and Police Quest 2, that was like the perfect pinnacle for me, where it was like, the graphics got a little better, but it was still parser. So somebody that is pulling like a weird popcorn kernel out of his mouth would like to say is that the point and click interface really brings more exploration. Like when I don't have to type look at and then the thing, I'm more prone to just look at everything. Like if I had to type, going back to that example outside the jail cell, if I had to type look at street, look at plants, look at wall, like I'm not doing most of that. I'm going to basically just try and figure out what I have to look at quickly and get to the, more goal oriented because of the labor of typing. Whereas in the point and click with the eye icon, it's nothing to just move it around and click and just see what happens. Let the game feed you, good lines, funniness, whatever. So I guess my big lesson learned, if there was one, from examining the remake to the original, as somebody who likes the AGI era the best and the parser era the best, I would say that the remake was more fun in that sense. There was more exploration, there was more rewards, there was more little dopamine hits, just because exploring the environment was easier.
Okay, yeah, I would say so. Exploring the environment, looking around. You don't always know what to say to people in the original, too. You're kind of like talk man, right? And they're like, hi. You're right. What are the specific questions I can ask and how can I phrase it? So you're missing, there's lots of dialogue in the first one that, I think often ends up getting missed. And the nice thing with the point and click is you can just keep clicking through and seeing all the dialogue. You're not missing any of the descriptions. Instead of it being like pictures are all over the wall, it's like you can look at each individual picture and it'll describe what's in it. So there's a lot of that. And I think it does expand the world, doesn't it?
Thank you. That's exactly what I was trying to say. It's a great articulation of my point. It expands the world because in the original, for example, you would probably look room and then look at the obvious thing on the counter, like the radio. Like it's like, okay, that's definitely something I'm probably supposed to take. So let's take a look at what it is. And that might be the extent of it. Like you're going to always look room and then look at like the thing or three that you probably take. Whereas in the remake with the point and click interface, it really expanded the world. The world building became stronger. I found I guess I'm getting this out now in a sense of now or never sort of deal, but something I wanted to talk to you about during this episode is in Police Quest 1, in the original, in the AGI version, I felt, and I heard it in reviews from not only from trolls but from Roses, and I think we've said it before, is that Sonny has very little personality in the original. He's almost got no personality, and this brings me to two things I actually want to talk about. So one of them was kind of quick, and it's more of just a statement. So I'll just say that and then give you space to respond and move on. But is that people are way, way harder on Police Quest than the other Sierra AGI games. Like, like there's like Roger isn't even named Roger in the first Space Quest, right? You pick the name that you want to give him. Like King Graham isn't like a fleshed out character in King's Quest 1 or 2. So like all of a sudden when it comes to Police Quest, there's like serious criticism coming towards Sonny for not having more personality. And it just seemed really unfair because I'm like, he's not even Roger for the first two games. King Graham has no anything. He's just ripped out of a fairy tale prince on his way to becoming a king. Like we don't know who Graham the man is from the AGI, or for that matter, even Alexander in the third one, as the same with Roger, who again isn't Roger. And I thought it was a little bit weird as I was looking at reviews and giving, podcasts or whatever things that touched on this game. Listen, everybody was really hard on Sonny for not being more of a fleshed out character. And I was just like kind of calling bullshit. I'm like, well, that's not fair at all. Because again, I won't repeat everything I just said, but because of all the things I just said, it seems kind of unfair. And then to my actual point, this is what I want to get your opinions on, is that so I had chalked up Sonny as being kind of an avatar. When it comes to the AGI
Oh my God,
version.
yes. I was just waiting to be able to put that in. Yes, please do tell me what's in my brain.
Okay, good. And then then you take over. But I was going to say, he's in the AGI version, he plays the perfect avatar. Like I didn't need him to be a fleshed out character. I maybe part of the charm and part of the reason I loved this as a kid was because I felt like the cop. I was Sonny. Like Sonny was me. Like who is Sonny as a person? Well, he's me, the player. Like he's exactly a perfect avatar. So anyway, you go. I want to hear what you have to say about the avatar thing.
Well, I always thought that the games were made to be mildly generic, at least in the beginning, because you are supposed to pretend you are that character. And how are you going to be that character if that character has a fully fleshed out personality? You are Sonny Bonds. You fill in those blanks. That's what it's all about.
Right. Thank you. Okay. I'm so glad you felt that way. Because, it seemed like not only were people being a little more harsh to Police Quest or to Sonny than, let's say, Roger, for the sake of a weakly forming metaphor, it's also to say, like, maybe they're also kind of missing the point here, where it's not – it's Sonny isn't the birth of a King Graham. This isn't the birth of a grand character. This is more meant to be an avatar where you feel like the cop. And I feel like the game's kind of obvious about that. They want you to really think you're the policeman in this game. Almost in a sense of how Longbow is teaching you to be a leader, because they want you to be, they want Robin to be a leader. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. Now to the remake, and just kind of at the heart of my point here is that Sonny is actually a lot more fleshed out. He's subtly fleshed out, and it dawned on me in the middle of playing the remake or towards the end of it, because I was having a lot of fun with it. And maybe in the AGI's defense, maybe if I was looking around and interacting more in the AGI, there'd be more time for this to shine. But I somehow don't think so. So I'll just stick with what I know well right now, which is the remake, because I just played it, and say that by the end of the remake, I realized that Peter Parker was fleshed out further, let's say, and he's Peter Parker. He's totally Peter Parker in the remake. He's like a little bit dry, a little sarcastic, and super quippy. Like he's basically Peter. Like, Peter Parker has like this vanilla white dude thing about him. Like a dad, he's like too young to be a dad, but he's bringing the dad energy, like the kind of dad joke, sort of just corny on purpose, and sarcasm and just quippiness. I said sarcasm with weird emphasis on the syllables there.
Emphasis on the wrong syllables.
Thank you. There we go. Yeah. Where's my banjo? But anyway, I just wanted to say that it's kind of it's a weird point I'm trying to make, because it's really split in two. One, I'm trying to say that for the AGI one, Sonny is supposed to be an avatar / get off his back, because Roger and Graham didn't have a fleshed out character trait in the AGI era either. And then on the flip side, I'm trying to say that in the remake, he's actually fleshed out a bit further, or at least the ease of looking and interacting on so many different things and so many different screens gives you more of Sonny to start to see who he is in the remake. And what I saw was Peter Parker, essentially. Was somebody who wants to be heroic, he wants to do good, he's quite dry, quite sarcastic, and very quippy.
That's it. And that's what they were doing. I mean, if you look at, again, Space Quest 4, King's Quest 5, right in that same timeline, they were really working hard on fleshing out a personality. I think they were trying to expand the universes with the graphics and with the the thought put into different sides of things. They all of them became into their own, and they took that concept and did it with Police Quest 2. He became Sonny Bonds. He became Roger Wilco. He became, the only game that didn't really do that was Quest for Glory, because again, it was meant to be an avatar. This is the hero. You're going to name it. The hero is you. You are the hero.
Right. It was unarguably meant to be the avatar. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Like Sunny, I'm kind of pitching it in that, manipulating it in that direction in a sense. Whereas with Quest for Glory, that was unarguably and I guess I should say too, just to be pedantic, is Leisure Suit Larry, even in the AGI era, was like air quotes fleshed out, but it's like he never really got more complex than because I could say he's not really fleshed out. He's just horny, trying to lose his virginity. Blah, 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 all the Larry traits.
He gets married and he ends up being with Patty. And, there's even backstory fleshing out Larry even more if you get the guidebooks. Like, what was Patty doing when he was doing the other games? What was the history? When did she leave him? They've been quite three-dimensional.
That is cool. All right. That makes me, because we were just saying we need to do 3, but I guess we're trying to do this remake series. So we'll eventually get to the Larry remake, which will be kind of fun and again, that has its own counterpart, right? The Larry remake looks just like Larry 5.
Oh my god! And then we're going to do Reloaded. We're going to do the Larry remake Reloaded. That's going to be like a bomb episode, dude.
Right. Okay. One of us should do the remake, the other Reloaded, because we've both done the original enough. Yeah. Okay. Anyway,
I've done all of them. So I've done all the Larrys. Oh yeah.
You slut.
So good.
All right, so we're getting actually quite to the end of the game.
Yeah, so you get promoted. You're taking on the drug scene, right? If you don't remember to put in the memo, you're not going to do it in the first one. In the second one, you still have to put in a memo, and you have to get in, right? And you get into the.
It's a lot more in the remake. It's a lot more guided. I'm sure. I can't exactly remember because I'm sure you have to take action. I'm sure you have to click. I feel like I clicked I feel like I interacted with the game to sign the paper and put it in the thing, but it's like in the first one, you're kind of just like you're quickly told that, and you have to realize that that's something you got to do. Whereas in the remake, they're like, hey, look, fucking sign this and put it in the thing, or else this game's not going anywhere. And you do it.
And then you have to shower again, and then you have to dress like a pimp, and then all the girls at the station have to dye your hair blonde because that's what happens.
Right? Yeah, you got to bleach your hair. Oh, I'll say a quick note I have in the remake is because I thought it was adorable. Is that when you get promoted and you're in the office, you just accepted your promotion, your new the sergeant, whatever, your boss is just like, all right, detective, get on out there, and Sonny's like, yes sir, and there's just something so cute about it because he's like so excited to have just gotten promoted, and he's like, all right, detective, and then Sonny's like, yes sir, I don't know, cute. It was very. In the
remake, you have to bleach your hair white, is how they phrase it in the remake too, and it's not quite as like viciously yellow as it is in the original. So yeah, you've got your hair; it's all whited up, whatever version it is, and it turns out you're like an old compatriot or friend of Sweet Cheeks Marie that's just gotten out of jail, and your name is obviously going to be Whitey. I mean, it's because of the hair, not any other reason. Paul.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're going undercover, and she's a big part of this. Can we call it is it a sting?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could call it a sting operation, and I mean, you're dressed up. You even got the pimp cane, so you're ready for this.
There's before we head off to the hotel, I'll just say that there's a cop in the remake named Mike who and he's known as like odd sense of humor Mike, and he's actually pretty dark and funny because he's like one of the lines was, we heard you found a dead body the other day, Sonny, and Mike's just like, well, now we have one too, so there. It's just like, man, because they set him up as somebody like who's weird, and then like his first line is super weird. You're like, okay, fair enough. He's like, now we got one too.
That reminds me of a line I liked. If when you arrest the drug dealer guy and you search through his glove box and you get his little black book, one of the pages is Discipline Pimp 1, Discipline Pimp 2. Like that is the best.
Discipline Pimp, that is the best.
And you're so rude to the criminals. You're just like, you're calling them dog meat. You're like, you're just a piece of crap. It's like, you could never, if you talk to criminals the same way now, man, it'd be like a human rights tribunal or something. They're so like, just down to earth here.
Yeah, exactly. Down to earth is wow. That's a good twist on it, actually. It's just, down to earth. All right. So gathering my thoughts for the conclusion. One thing in the remake is that there's Marie's friend comes into play, and there's a question I had for you to ask during the episode, basically, which is in the original, the bartender is male, not female, and he doesn't really do much besides let you in, right?
Right.
Okay. Because in the second one, you interact a lot more with your friend, and her friend like brings you back to the room and just I don't know. It's just the bartender in the remake is a fleshed out character basically, as opposed to just generic bartender guy who you interact with once or twice,
and can give all of your money to, and he'll never give it back.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. And I almost wonder. Okay, so what Anna's referencing is like there's a way to cheat the poker game in the original where because they use like an 8-bit integer that can only hold 255 characters, like if you go past 255, it circles back to the beginning, but adds a 0, so it gives you $2,550. Anyway, you're referencing that, which is a way to kind of cheat the poker game in the original, and what really helps, what supplements that cheating, is to be able to, it helps to give your money away because you want to obtain less than 0, so it circles back around again. So I almost wonder if what you just referenced was in on purpose for testing, because
I think it was there for testing. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
If you feel me, because we do shit like that with Phantom Fellows, where it's like just weird little things that just help you get to a deep, help you just progress quickly or get past something quickly, and you do something you figure they wouldn't account for or whatever, and in this case, forget to comment it out or whatever. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, there was a bunch of those in the Christy Marks games because she simply didn't want to wait for things, slow walks and things. So you'll end up with these like funny little random codes that will just do the randomest stuff to cut everything short. And it's like, okay, that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, it's all just forgetting to comment out or just thinking that nobody will ever do it. Because again, this is like these were the pioneers of this shit, and it was the 80s with no internet, and it's just like they'll never do that. It's not like in 40 years from now people will still be playing these games and critiquing them and giving them podcast episodes. I mean, geez,
no, never. But okay, how many people, like I learned the radio codes from this game. I learned a lot of the police talk, and I also learned how to play poker. Now, the game itself came with a 5-card stud little sheet so you could learn how to play, and I've used that. I photocopied it, and I've taught my kids how to play various types of poker games using that exact instructional over and over and over and over. I said I used it so much so I didn't want to ruin my book, so I had to copy it so I could pull out a piece of paper and write it down, teach my kids big too, and other games you've never heard of, Paul. Yeah, so this game, and it taught me how to read maps and like get places and memorize locations and north, south, east, west. But anyways, it was really the poker really got you because you had to win a certain amount, and it was all about the save spamming, which we didn't call it back then, but you had to play. And if you won, save; if you lost, lose, because you need to get a specific amount of money, and it can really make or break the game if you can't win.
And that's how I did it as a kid. I was so determined to not learn how to play poker that I would just fucking just hope for the best and save every time I made a small game until I got through it. I hate that. I still don't enjoy cards.
Police Quest and Larry, man, they forced it on you. You had no choice.
Yeah, was that an Lowe's thing?
I think it must have been. It was in almost every single. No, I think it's in like every Larry game. You have to either go to a slot machine or gamble or play some sort of cards or poker. It's in all of them.
Well, let's wrap up the story of the game so we can get to our random thoughts and wrap. But I'll say because again we're at the Hotel d'Euphoria. We've got to win several card games to get back.
Because you have to win once and then win big and then win all.
Right, that's right. You got to win big. Yeah, that was the annoying one. Exactly. And you're doing all this basically to end up invited to who turns out to be Jesse Baines' suite. Jesse Baines being the Death Angel himself. I don't think we've said that all episode, but it's Police Quest, Pursuit of the Death Angel. And that's Jesse Baines.
Or Frank. His name's also Frank. Because that's how you know him as, but it turns out it is Jesse Baines.
It's actually Jesse Baines, yeah. So you're doing all this to get invited up to his suite where Jesse will find out that you're a cop and will try to kill you, but at the last second your backup comes in. So for the For the original, I'll just say my recollection is it was one of the best parts of my whole childhood was getting into like something about even to this day when I see that hotel room screen, I still get hit with just those vibes, man. Like, whatever your game was to our listeners, we all have one or three of them where it's just like that was my game, man. That was the one that got me into that there's a screen that just gives you these feelings that are like nothing else, where it's just like, I can't even articulate it. I just can find some sort of peace knowing that everybody listening can relate to at least, to the screen, whether it's in this game or not, to that feeling. And for me, it was the screen where Jesse Baines gets shot. In the remake, my note, and it was the best thing I can do right now is just read my note from the time, which was the ending is positively no fun. You don't do anything except for call for backup and wait for them to come shoot Jesse Baines, and on comes the ending cutscene and the game ends. I don't remember, even though it doesn't play out mechanically all that different in the original, where ultimately very similar things happen, but in the remake you don't even get to shoot at them. The backup does the shooting, and I don't know, it's like maybe they should have let you be the one that shoots them, but it's very, very disappointing, the remake, very anticlimactic, because you're waiting this whole game to get to this one point, and basically Jesse Baines answers a phone call, you hide behind a bush, and it all that's it. That's the last thing you do in the remake, is hide behind something and let the game end itself.
That's pretty much it. Because Baines, he draws his gun and he's like, "Oh, your cover's blown," and then you're like, "Oh, turns out one of the card players recognized you behind your disguise," and it just goes. But then the backup comes, and then they just take him out, and it's over. Well, they don't kill him, but close.
Yeah, you think they do, but he'll be back for the sequel.
He will definitely. And then after that, it's stressful because you're like, did I even do everything right all the way through the game? Because you got to go to court.
Right. Well, let me ask you. So, because I don't remember in the original, do you shoot at him at all, or is it the same? Does the backup kill Jesse Baines?
Let's see. He draws his gun and aims it directly at you. "Hold it there, pig. It seems one of our card-playing comrades recognizes your ugly mug, and that's just how much I hate cops." What happens next? You're the only one in the room at the time. Gosh, I can't remember, and I just played it a little bit ago. I thought you shot him, but no, maybe you don't have to type shoot. I think it kind of just happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, I can't remember it. Maybe you just draw your gun, because your gun is drawn, I think, in the original. Yeah, I guess my only point would be anyway is that whatever the original did, they did it right, because I never felt ripped off by the ending in the original. But for some reason in the remake, I felt short. I felt like shorthanded. It was just like, oh, really? Yeah. That's it? The last thing I'm going to do is hide? And then I think the point I would highlight is that if the first one is the same way, then it does it in a way that you don't feel like you feel very satisfied. Like I did everything right, and my crew saved me at the last set. Whereas in the remake, there's just something about it that's just very disappointing. Yeah,
it's more stressful in the first one.
So much more stressful.
It is way more stressful. It really is, and everything's so tiny and exact, and nothing pauses, and it all just kind of keeps going. So it's more stressful for sure.
Okay, so positive I want to say about the remake to counter that negative is that Marie is handled so well in the remake, especially in the Delphoria part of the game. Let's just say when you get back to the hotel and you go to a hotel room with Maria, she's surprisingly well developed. She has these short, simple lines. So it's something grandiose, but in these short, simple lines, she'll say something like, "If I hadn't screwed my life up so bad," lines you might expect from, I guess, a lady of the night. So yeah, and that was a quote from the game. "If I hadn't screwed my life up so bad, maybe," she's basically trying to say, maybe I could have, been the kind of girl that gets with a guy like you. And if you mix that with her compassion for that's right, the bartender's name is Alex, Alexandra, who's a female in the remake, but she's very concerned about Alex not getting screwed over by the cops and not getting, because Alex is aware of this illegal poker game that goes on in the back, and she's only on board if the cops don't fuck with her friend, and just little things like that, where the game doesn't put it on parade, but it's subtly Marie's personality and character is developing in the form of this compassion. And she ends up telling the player like kind of a lot about herself in the remake, just throughout these lines, especially in the hotel, talking to Sunny about how things maybe could have been. And you as a player can like imagine a different life for her on a dime. And that's all because of the context. Like they provide enough context and growth from her character to where you can start empathizing and just being like, man, like I could see how like if one or two things was different, she'd be a whole different person. But she made, one or two bad choices, and you can kind of really just get it and like understand and sympathize with her. And so yeah, that was good. That was good stuff. It was good writing.
Mm-hmm.
It was the subtlety of it too. So okay, let's prepare our kind of closing thoughts and things like this. I've got
remember Jesse's middle name? His name is Hiram. Jesse Hiram Bain.
Are you serious?
They tell you that at the court case in the original, what his name is.
That's so weird. What a weird middle name.
I know. I was excited to share that. But then end up... Go ahead.
What if one of our listeners had that middle name? I'd be like, hey.
It's beautiful. But no, it's all the names in this game are great. Because, I mean, you're charging the dude with illegal gambling with Bambino Bamboni, which is a great gambler name. And you've got Woody Roberts. He's the one that turned in the state evidence. There's a drug trafficking charge for Donald D. Colby. And then, you get to do the ballistic evidence to be able to find out how Baines murdered Jason Tasselli, which is another lovely game. And then you get to do it like you're in the courtroom, everything's happening, and you get to find out if you actually proved these things or not with all the evidence that you had got throughout the game.
I'm not sure if that's in the remake at all.
Oh. Yeah, you get to go through the whole court process. And then at the end, if you win, you get you smile broadly and Baines is glaring holes through your skull and you're not yet free of him. So it's kind of got that ambiguous what's going to happen ending. Yeah.
In the remake, that does not exist. Now, you go from Jesse Baines's room to outside of, City Hall or whatever. So yeah, that's completely skipped in the remake, which is interesting.
And you can't even take your clothes off.
Exactly. Yeah. That's awesome. And to anybody who wasn't aware, you can just strip naked in front of everybody while receiving the key to the city.
You can pretty much do it in most places in the game, but it doesn't go well for you. Yeah,
there's a lot of, they spend a lot of time programming deaths for walking around the police station in a towel and or naked. It's kind of crazy to think of the time. Okay, so 3 random notes I have for it is in the remake, Sonny's portrait that he looks like Jimmy Carter, maybe? I might have the wrong president, but Sonny looks like a president, an old U.S. president in his portrait. Not an old one. Whatever. Like, that doesn't matter. There's a weird design choice in the remake where not every character got a portrait, which is like, it's fair enough. Like, okay, fair enough. But then, like, the ones that don't have portraits have different text boxes than the characters with portraits. And the text is different, where it's all, like, bold and, like, the text box pops up in the middle of the screen. It's just, like, a weird design choice is the point of this note. And then this one is just to offer any catharsis to anybody who's played the remake and just needs to hear somebody else who played it and had the same problem, is if you're approaching driving in the remake, if you're approaching the police department from the right, and you're turning left into it, then the game automatically overrides your arrow selection and you have to fucking circle around the whole building again. It's got to be a bug. Like I don't see any like design wise, I couldn't see why they wouldn't let you do it. It's just, if you're specifically approaching from the right to where you'd have to turn left into the police station, the game just turns off your arrow. It just doesn't let it happen. It's very weird. And
that sounds like a glitch or something for sure.
Yeah, it's super annoying too. So you got to drive around the whole block again, and again, the driving is just fucking painful. In the remake, it really is somehow worse than the first one, because at least the first one, like, there's suspense. And I'll just transition to one of my 2 ending things. I'll go on, and I was to say that I played this game with my son last night and had just the best time with him. So, like, anybody who has like an 8-year-old who doesn't give a shit about adventure games. Mine's been like indoctrinated and he's forced to give a shit about them. But when I say that, it's not like he himself spends any of his free time on adventure games or anything like that. He just knows to play them with me and to just let it happen, basically. But it's like, don't be afraid to play these with your kids, because like we had so much fun. We lit a fire, sat on a giant beanbag, ate tons of mandarin oranges. We threw the orange peels into the fireplace because they smell amazing. And by the way, it's safe to do that. So anybody's, just like, you can create such a moment in memory so easily, like, with your kids with this kind of stuff. And I just sat down, put on the Apple 2GS version on Scum, gave him, put the laptop on his lap, and he just crashed the car for like 93 minutes. And like, the last half hour was mostly him just trying to get me to laugh. But it was so much fun. Like, and it's just, there's something just about that childlike wonder where it took what is the most criticized part of the original game and made it the best part of my week. You know what I mean? Like, like we get, as nerds, we get so locked into the pedantics and like, well, here, the design, the driving is fucking ridiculous, and you crash nonstop. And it's like, but at the same time, it's just as easily like one of the best parts about the game if you end up having a moment like that. So yeah,
it is.
Just wanted to.
And I love the driving. I will always defend the driving in that game. So, see, fun. I love that though. See, and you shared a little clip with me of, just from crashing the vehicle into the side. And I said to you, I think he's teasing you, because I could see it. He's kind of like, whoop, whoop, whoop. Am I going to crash it? Whoop, whoop. And then as soon as you're like, oh, no, he's not going to crash. He's like, whoop, boom, crash. And then you guys are both laughing. And I think that's just like the best kind of moments.
He was Austin Powersing it. He was, like that scene where he gets the forklift thing like stuck in the hallway. Like the wrong direction. It was kind of like that. He would get the car somehow turned like facing the curbs, and yeah, Austin Powers it for anybody that makes sense to. There you go. Good luck with these words. I hope they reach you. This
game is a life changer. It was for me. I've told the story before on the podcast, but I memorized the codes back in the day, and then I had a CB radio put in my car when I was about 16, driving age, obviously. And I'd go up to the top of the mountain across the street from my house with my friend, and we made friends with the truckers that lived in Seattle. I live on Vancouver Island. Most of the truckers were Port Angeles and, over in the States across the water. And because we knew the radio codes, we got really quite friendly. So we knew their names, Bert and Ralph and all of them. And we'd go up and we'd talk and they'd talk back. And it was super cool. And it ended up leading to a friend of mine hanging out with a trucker and dating a trucker who owned his own truck. We stayed at his house one time, and it just led off to these wild and crazy adventures. And all of that stemmed from this game. So it's, it's a memory maker for sure.
That's so cool. That's such a perfect bookend to what I just said, because it's like a way that Police Quest can how it can make memories from 30 years ago that like forge friendships, or how it can just give you like an awesome night with your kid, yesterday or whatever. It's still oddly relevant, which is really cool. And so, all right, my last thing that I really have to say is just from a note that takes place a little bit earlier in the game, with going back to Mike, dark, odd personality Mike, odd sense of humor Mike. There we go. Him and his partner Todd, they're basically taking pictures of this dead body when you walk up, and you have like a very brief interaction with them, but they feel like real partners. They're both like a little dark with their humor. And you could tell that they're doing that to cope with the work that they do, like, because they're in the middle of photographing a dead body. So it's like, of course, they have that kind of sense of humor. They have to get through this line of work. And just something about this scene in the remake is so well done, because Sonny knows who he is too. Like he knows where he fits in with them. Like who Sonny is with Mike and Todd isn't who Sonny is with Marie. And in that moment, I realized that Sonny does have quite a personality fleshed out in the remake by now. This like Sonny is acting around Mike and Todd like you imagine he would, like more like, with the guys, they're a little ball breaky, a little just, they know their place with each other. And that's what makes it feel. And it feels like a big team that you're a part of. The police force, which is what the game is going for, right? Like I can't say I'm somebody who yearns to know what that's like, but in playing Police Quest, that's what they should be doing, is making you feel like the force is like a big team, and each player knows, their position out there, and I was gonna say on the ice, take it easy. But each person on the force knows their position. They have dynamics with one another that differs from their dynamics with the other ones. And basically, I got the impression that everybody on the force was close, and that each cop had a distinct personality, and that's just miles deeper than the AGI version. There's some serious character growth and development that's quite subtle. It's just this is the everything I'm verbalizing now is something that just hit me. Right before the last act of the game, it all just kind of tied in. And I'm like, holy shit, this whole time they've actually been just very slowly and subtly developing these characters. Cause now I get where Marie's coming from. And I understand why Mike's sense of humor is dark. And I see how Sonny is different around Mike and Todd as he is Sweet Cheeks, as he is the sergeant. But it's still Sonny with all of those different people. He's just how we would be with our boss or girl or guy friend.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So human.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, it was a really good time. If you haven't played the remake, I know it's not fun to look at, but if you like the original and there's a Sierra, there's a air quotes new Sierra game that you could play, play it. You're going to have fun. I resisted for 39 years for some reason. Well, I mean, it's not like I would have wanted to play from when I was an infant. I resisted for 31 years. Look, we're getting muddied up in the math here again.
Decades of resistance have been canceled out here by both of us for both of us today. And it's a good thing.
Exactly. Now, granted, we've finished the episode now. You're probably sick of hearing it and you don't want to play it anymore because we just explained it all, to which, fair enough. I think we did our job. So play it or don't. It's a fun time.
It is. And I want to take a few seconds just before we carry on to mention that we did go ahead and put one of our episodes on YouTube. It's called Quest for Story, the Role of an Adventure Games Plot. And that's at the Classic Gamers Guild, or you could even find it CGG Guild on YouTube. And I just wanted to address a couple of the comments that were made on our video, because usually email's been about the only way we've been interacting. And I thought it was kind of fun. So Slat Studio, who's making an absolutely beautiful game as well, in the style of Quest for Glory. Yep, very, very much so. Said, plot is more or less important depending on who plays the game. In my view, adventure games have three major elements that people play them to enjoy: exploration, puzzle solving, and story. I tend to weigh exploration as my favorite element. Great games can mix them well, but games with less emphasis on the others can stand on the weight of one if they can do that one really, really well, which I thought was a nice point to make.
It was it was so articulated and well made that it was almost, Lunchbox, please, I'm trying to compliment Ryan. It was so well done that I was almost jealous of it. I'm like, damn, that's how I should have said that. That's the words I should have said on the episode.
Exactly. Oh my God. He said that great. And one of our new followers, This Hallway is Dangerous, who's another writer and has his own YouTube page, says, it's a cool debate on balance for this friend of ours. Immersive gameplay experiences any kind of need to balance story and immersive routine. As a Quest for Glory snob, thank you for representing. I think that the series lives on the pedestal for me because it has such memorable story beats. Toby's sacrifice, friends coming together to fight the Hall of Mirror Demons, Baba Yaga's torment, and defeat. This is the most Quest for Glory talk on this podcast in a while. I'm going to keep going. Killing Bruno after 5 games, however, which was a bit of a spoiler. But anyways, it never lets the story become more important than your own life experience in the game. So, it's really interesting to think about that side of things. Also, our friend Jamie from Guild says, I can't wait to see more videos, which is adorable. Brian Briggs Family Law said that they didn't know we filmed the podcast. And Adventure Game Hotspot, well, that was kind of neat because we ended up getting into a conversation about Uncharted 4. And that led to Paul going and talking about that game for a little bit on the Adventure Game Hotspot, which is also a fun thing.
Yeah, I got to bust into one of his... It was linked in the last episode because I'll probably link their newer works in this one.
Yeah,
it would be kind of narcissistic of me to ignore that and list my brief appearance one again. But in the notes of the last episode that we did with One Short Eye, you could find the podcast that I got to bust in on, and like a wrecking ball. Boo. Sorry. Also, a second ago I said PU to Quest for Glory. Please don't yell at me. I've never played Quest for Glory. That's look. For the sake of argument,
to be able to talk about it.
Exactly. Yeah, I was just being jokey. I'm a little traumatized from
trying to play it in your car on a mobile device.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe.
Exactly. Dude, I'm trying to think of our end. We got to thank Chad Armstrong, who's a new Patreon.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. Chad's a new Patreoner.
We did an episode with Chad. He's my like he's the only other Mac person I know, like who but he's not. It's not just like, oh, he like uses Macs or whatever, but he's like ported AGI Studio to Mac. He's helped out with a lot of the reason that the Phantom Fellows is available for Mac is because of Chad. Because he made a template that allows me to just basically like, I mean, okay, there's a few extra steps with like Xcode and signing it and stuff like that, but ultimately, like because of Chad, I can like drag and drop my game data files and it works on Mac. Like he's invaluable or indispensable or whichever one's a compliment of those. So thank you, Chad. You're the best. Check out Ryan Slat Studio, Ryan Slattery. Check out his games, Betrayed Alliance. He's working on a remake of the first one and a second one. So it's quite exciting. The art and everything is just if you like Sierra games, you absolutely have to check it out. So yeah shout out to Slat Studio.
And a huge shout out to Michael Council and Brian Manown for continuing to be in the extra special thanks tier. We appreciate all of you, and it's really nice to see the support. Adventure Game Geek too. You're one of our newer subscribers. Thank you. Also, it is a whole bunch of awesome to see you guys in there. Hey, who else do we got? Girolamo Castilado.
It's cool too. You could see Michael Council was hanging out with Trolls and Geek at Adventure X recently. I don't know if I said this last episode or not, but whatever, it doesn't matter. It's just there's something cool about like being able to be, basically like I know him. I know that guy. I collect his $5. But no, it's cool seeing all of our friends together, and hopefully one or both of us will be at Adventure X next year. So there's that. But anyway, you were going to say other stuff, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, I was just going to say, again, thanks so much for listening to the episode. We really appreciate it. You can always find us in the online world. You can find us on Twitter at CGG Podcast or at Phantom Fellows, which is another place to look for us, and the Phantom Fellows. A game that is being made will be available with a new demo, and probably the new demo of the first day or two is going to be coming out at some point, right?
Yes, yeah. We'll do like a dev corner next time, or maybe even like a dev episode soon. If we,
that would be good. There's so much to talk about. Oh my God.
Yeah, maybe we should do one of those soon, because there's going to come a time where with the holidays that we don't have time to play games for an episode, and we'll just need like an easy, lazy topic, and that could be one.
That we spend like so many hours on every single day already, so we don't need to do any research because we're living it, and that's fine. But yeah, we'll definitely do that. Otherwise, you can find our random episode on YouTube. You can email us, mail@theclassicgamersguild.com. You can find us on Facebook. We're a page, we're a group. You can even send messages there. We'll get it. Support us on Patreon, just like we already talked about, patreon.com, Classic Gamers Guild. And Paul, your turn.
And we got some fun guests coming up soon too, for everybody, including Dave Gilbert, who reached out to us and said that he had just found the show and like went through back catalog stuff. And that was the coolest Wednesday I've had in a while. Waking up to that news, I was like, dude, that's an awesome, absolute bloody legend. And we're gonna have him on the show after the holidays, which I'm excited about. Same with most likely like Daniel Albu from Conversations with Curtis, and perhaps Tom Hardwidge come back on again. Who did Lucy Dreaming and is working on Hair of the Dog. Eric Elsom, I think, too, to talk about soundtracks and to
Oh, yeah, right. Shout out to Eric Elsom. He's been making the King's Quest records, and he's with Magic Map Studios, and also I think he does some violin work with Error 47, Trolls Band, John Paul Sapford, and I think Jackie Stewart's in there. So he's going to be doing one for King's Quest 6 soon. He's going to come back, and we're going to do a little playthrough of King's Quest 6, and we're all going to kind of learn a little bit more information about the game and get a little bit more depth on it. Then we're going to have Eric back on. We're going to do an episode, and we're going to actually talk about it for a while and talk about what he's doing with Magic Map Studios and what he's doing to recreate and represent King's Quest 6 on a record. So I'm super looking forward to that.
Yes, absolutely same. So we got good things coming. Something, love yourself, blah, blah, blah. Don't do murder.